Good afternoon. Welcome back to United TV, latest Manchester United news. And we will be talking about a few things. We will be talking about Baleba because there has been stories that the midfield merry-go-round is going to be maybe kicking into gear quite soon. It looks like Enzo Fernandez was linked with a move to Manchester City, also Anderson linked to Manchester City as well. This potentially does open up some competition for Manchester United with maybe some speculation. It might be that Chelsea actually don't have Champions League, which might be a factor, but it might be that Chelsea look to rebuild their team. They move on some players. They do sign a lot of players. Belieber might be towards the top end of players they do buy, but it does seem to be that Manchester United might not have a free run at Baleba, which we did think was going to be the case. It might be that there is another team interested, and it might be Chelsea. It might be that Baleba has no interest in joining Chelsea, which will be good, but it does go to show that it's not completely a free run for Manchester United. And the other side of this story is in terms of how much it's going to cost. There was a story this morning again saying that Belieber, this is from actually with the last 24 hours, I think, but saying Belieber will not be cheaper than 60 million euros. So Manchester United, I think they know the price is probably going to be, it's probably not going to be necessarily 70 million pounds, but it might be at least 60 million pounds. So it might be that sort of price point. And that's probably where the situation is at the moment. One thing we're not going to be discussing in the foreseeable future is probably Anderson, because now Nottingham Forest players, journalists, this is literally a few hours ago, saying that Forest players, there's a few of them actually think they know where Anderson's going to go, and it's not the red side of Manchester, unfortunately. So I think we all kind of thought that was going to be the case, and I don't think that we were really expecting much else. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of other midfield stories heat up as well. The Marcus Rashford situation is something we won't probably be talking about too much, but it does seem to be that terms were agreed between Rashford and Barcelona. Barcelona don't want to necessarily pay the price they have to do to get Marcus Rashford, but it might be that for whatever reason, maybe Marcus Rashford can actually reduce his salary further to take into account of that. Man United is understood to be very keen to move Rashford on. They want to move him on anyway, but also extra pressure to move him on because he will be getting a pay rise if Man United get Champions League football under his contract situation. So that's probably the news stories that have been put out there. So there's a few things to discuss, and we'll be looking at this one. I just saw this say Barcelona will pay. I hope you're right, Yardi. I hope you're right. So let me just get the live chat actually linked up with the stream so we can see that on the screen. But I think that's synced. Let me just check. But I was trying to put your comment up saying Barcelona will pay. Yeah, so we have got it on screen now. So Barcelona will pay, says Yardi. I hope Barcelona will pay. And I think that in terms of like the deal, Man United can't really reduce the price anymore. There was a story this morning which you might find amusing, but to put it out there, this was the story said that Spurs might be interested in Rashford. Obviously, Spurs have to avoid relegation first, but you kind of see where this is going. That is going to be a lot of stories talking about a lot of things as well. Bilal saying if Rashford takes a pay cut, he will have your respect. Yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen because also the tax situation is very different in Spain. So it's not like he's going to take as big a pay reduction as we think. But certainly, if he wants to get the deal done, we know that Marcus Rashford has routinely said that his destination he wants to be is Barcelona. It's a little bit like Anthony choosing where he wanted to go. You kind of got to hope it happens. There's not much Man United can do. The price is pretty low as it is. So it is what it is, unfortunately. So we're going to go through like the Belieber situation. Apparently, Manchester United are getting close to putting an offer in. Um, Probably, maybe there's some prizes if you can guess what the offer is going to be. I'm imagining it's got to be more than 50, less than 70, somewhere around that sort of price range. But Yanni says Chelsea interested in anyone, but they'll need to sell half the team before they can buy anybody. I think Chelsea do have this situation where apparently Garnacho is for sale. Apparently, if Enzo's off to Manchester City, surely he goes for quite big money. Big up to you, Danny. And but Chelsea are at a situation where they might have a financial hit. I mean, I don't know the scenario at Chelsea, but you'd probably look at it and say Chelsea will have a problem. Like they are going to maybe miss out on Champions League football. They've got a very bloated squad. They've got a lot of people on very long-term contracts. It's actually going to be quite difficult for Chelsea to move some of these people out, I believe. How do we set Rashford up 30 million euros, but reports saying Gordon is worth 80 million pounds? So who types the numbers? I think this might be it might be the salary possibly. Like with Marcus Rashford, I think Marcus Rashford is also 28. So with being a 28-year-old and primarily this is kind of me trying to understand it. I think Marcus Rashford is a player that throughout his career is like pace, physicality, and maybe he's the sort of player where people think that there is potential that he could decline because he does rely on incredible speed. And but again, it depends on if you're comparing to the players. I think Gordon is too expensive. Also, I don't think Gordon's as good a player as Rashford was. I think Gordon is too expensive, but a lot of people seem to be prepared to pay for potential these days. So younger players seem to cost an awful lot of money. That's why I think United can actually try and get like some okay deals if they go a little bit higher. Like there are some options in terms of like Edison's been talked about loads, but he seems to be an option that's coming back into it as well. So let's go through these. Also, welcome Kazi, welcome Cody to the chat. And say, didn't believe a state United and United only for him. So I know that Belieber stated he wanted to join Manchester United, and I know that at that time I think they were the only club interested in him. I don't know if he's categorically said it's only Manchester United. I think when we had a situation with Mbeumo last season, he said Manchester United or I stay at Brentford for another season. I don't think we've seen the same sort of situation with Carlos Baleba, but I don't think Carlos Baleba would necessarily be interested in a move to Chelsea where you'd have to pay sign a very very long term contract. So yeah, I don't think so. Um, yeah, I think Ian's saying no to Rashford. Well, I think Rashford has apparently Rashford doesn't want to come back to Manchester United. They don't want him, so that's why I'm not going to say any more about the Rashford situation unless there's a significant update. And but Ian's saying that there's no chance Chelsea are going to go for him. They haven't got the money. I think that the reason why they're talking about Chelsea is because potentially they could be selling a midfielder to Manchester City. And I mean Manchester City do spend quite big money. And maybe Chelsea are actually regretting some of the long term contracts they signed at the club. So it might well be that a few surprising deals happen. There's definitely seems to be a bit of energy towards Cole Palmer, but I don't think that's something I'd be interested in. So no, at the moment, I mean this probably sums it up as well. At the moment, Brighton are in better shape than Chelsea, so Belieber would be probably better in terms of like how the club's set up. But the difference is going to be that in terms of Brighton are going to pay him probably half the amount. If he's actually gone onto a contract that's about 70 to 80k per week, then it would be like for Belieber, it would be a big pay rise. It would be considered a promotion, I suppose, going from Brighton to Chelsea. Based on this season, though, I think that's a sensible. Like, based on this season, Chelsea are a bit of a shambles. You'd feel though, like with Chelsea, that if they did actually get a proper head coach in charge again, they should be a lot better. So I think with this one, that Chelsea are obviously in a bit of a mess, but you'd feel like if they got a better manager, they should improve. Like they got a lot of options there. But is there a bit of optimism towards tonight? I saw like Dorgu's back in the squad. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be really risky to get to start him, isn't it? And that's my view. I think it's a bit risky, but yeah, and interesting with this one. I say Chelsea are in a mess. Enzo only wants Madrid, so not likely he goes to City. Um, maybe now for Enzo, maybe if you're at Chelsea, I don't know what the contract is. How many years has Enzo Fernandez been at Chelsea? If you're on a 7 or 8 year contract at Chelsea and you go to Real Madrid, so you go to Man City on a 4 year contract, then potentially you haven't got a longer term contract, so it might be for Enzo. If you don't jump ship to Manchester City, it might be a quicker way of actually getting to Real Madrid. I don't know if playing at Chelsea at the moment is going to actually help. The fact that Man City have got a good team, if you're part of that team, you're probably going to be elevated anyway. So Enzo Fernandez would probably have more of a chance if he moves to Chelsea. But again, this is probably something that maybe is going to be an impact in the future. So if you're looking at Chelsea, really long contracts, I'm wondering whether that's going to start putting players off in the future. That I think maybe a couple of years ago, fans seem to be actually happy to sign, the players seem to be happy to sign 7 or 8 year contracts. I wonder if that's not the case. But it does seem to be that whatever's happening at Chelsea, their model's not working, is it? This idea of like selling players for profit every single season might have worked for a couple of years, but I think other clubs are actually starting to scout better and start to go for those sort of players that Chelsea were looking for. Last season was different. Chelsea didn't manage to find cheap deals. They got they ended up playing like Garnacho for 40, Gittins for 60. So they're not actually getting very good deals at the moment. So, so it's around. I saw this. Um, where was this comment I saw? But I saw someone in the comments saying that you don't think Baleba good enough for Manchester United. I think this is. I think United see Baleba as maybe like a complementary partner to Kobe Mainu. That some of the things that Mainu's not necessarily good at, that we might see that might be strengths in Baleba's game. So it could be like United see this as going to be actually a good option, not necessarily the only option because they will look for other players as well and say if it's around 60 million in a fee plus wages saved if Rashford goes. So I'm not saying I want Gordon. No, no, no. I agree. I agree. What I'm saying, I think with this one is that if you look at the fee and the salary with Rashford, I think because Rashford's older, then with Gordon, there's going to be that it will be cheaper. Actually, Gordon will be more expensive, but you might get more money back from Gordon in about 3 years' time, say. So if you got Rashford now, and then in a few years' time he's 31. I think with Gordon, you could still Gordon would be in the situation Rashford's in now. So I think that's it. I think it's just like if you get towards a certain age, the price goes down a lot. It's just the way that I think football is at the moment. It's the way that for some reason some of the players at the moment, I think the salary, say the transfers are really really high at the moment. Like so, some of the numbers being quoted for Anderson, I think are too high. So let's go through some of the comments regarding this one. I have got a poll in the comments because when we're trying to guess how much it's going to cost, I don't think there's going to be any chance that Belieber goes for like less than 60. I don't think that's going to be so. And I do agree that I'm not a fan of Gordon. So I would say that yeah, if Gordon goes for like 80, I think if Gordon goes for 60, honestly, I think Gordon isn't that sort of player. I don't think he's particularly. I know he might be one of the highest scoring players in Newcastle this season, but the bar is pretty low. So I wouldn't take Gordon in my team at the moment. I would rather have Cunha or Mbeumo in my team. I think if Gordon was going to be a Manchester United player, I could see him maybe fighting against Alma Jallo to be in a team, but I don't think he's. I don't think Newcastle can get that sort of money for him. I think there's better players out there. And if you consider it, the menu is for me levels better, and he was 65 million. So I don't know. I think it's interesting that that number's put there. If someone pays 80 million for Gordon, I'm going to be I'm going to be a bit suspicious to say the least. It kind of like seems like Manchester City kind of like rule breaking kind of deal all over it, doesn't it? And so United wanted to pay 50. They did. Brighton wanted 70. This is probably at least the first time. The difference between this and last season is last season Brighton wouldn't put a price. There was no price. I think when we talked about 100 million, then I think this was journalists trying to put a price on the Belieber deal. And I think what we're seeing now is that this is the first time I've read stories where Brighton are actually going, right, if we're going to sell him, this is what we want. And it does seem to be that things are getting a bit closer. And whether it's like the top target people, I know everybody's going to have a different top target. I think this is going to be one that probably we see something happening quite soon. Gordon's got three non-penalty goals. Yeah, exactly. I'm not a fan of Gordon, so I'm probably be a bit biased against Gordon. So say 60 million for didn't he cost about 60 million for Newcastle? I think they'd be lucky to get that back, to be honest. Everything Carby says, can't Radcliffe see how Chelsea are falling apart? Why is he copying their mould and signing young, inexperienced players? And saying you're saying he's clueless, obsessed with Chelsea. Yeah, say obsessed with Chelsea. I would say this that do you think Manchester United have actually done some? No, I don't think they've done exactly what Man City, sorry, what Chelsea have done. They've certainly signed younger players, but I think they're better. Like I think Dorgu. as a signing was cheaper than Garnacho. I think he's got a better attitude. I think he can obtain a higher level, hopefully. Aiden Heaven was young, extremely cheap, extreme, and I think Yoro is actually okay. He needs a bit. No, Yoro needs a bit more time. He needs some experience alongside him, but he's still only 20, and I think he's potentially actually quite a good signing. So I think that we've signed younger players, but I think we signed better quality players than Chelsea have. I think we got Cunha for sort of the similar sort of price they paid for Gittins. So I think we have bought some more experienced players than Chelsea have. Chelsea went for, say, Delap. We didn't go for Delap. Well, Delap chose Chelsea, but we went for Sesko, who was a few years more experienced. I think João Pedro is a good signing, but I think largely speaking, Chelsea's transfers have been quite poor this season. Like if you look at the players they bought, João Pedro is probably the one that's been good, but other players pretty disappointing. Yeah, no Gordon. I think that's one thing we'll agree on. No one wants Gordon. No one wants Gordon. Um, Chris says Belieber hasn't shown you anything, so you're not really on board. Agati does need replacing though. That do you think this one? I think with Belieber, it's probably very much that you're looking at probably what the potential is at this point in time. That at this point in time, it's probably quite difficult for us all to sit here and say how good's Belieber going to be next season. For people that watch Belieber, and you probably have to look at maybe the season before, you'd probably have to look and say, uh, do you see the potential in Belieber? Because this is what scouts are looking at. As fans, we're looking at form. If you're looking at attributes that could be developed as well, and I was making this point yesterday that players like Dorgu, Aiden Heaven, I see development there. I see some improvements with some of these players. It's going to take time, and I think Aiden Heaven's played about 20 matches, so there is improvements there, but it's going to take time. I think with Belieber, the age he's at, you'd be essentially the price is going to be how good is Belieber going to be in 2 years' time? If you see the upside as being potentially he's a good partner for Kobe Mainu. Mainu's only 21 as well, so he's only just turned 21. And people were quite critical about Mainu this season, but a year ago, Mainu did quite well. So I think you could look at these two players. Potentially, they could be quite a good kind of quite a good mix of like attributes. I think Belieber's obviously got a lot of energy, a lot of mobility. He would have probably been like one of the few players that could actually, maybe alongside Anderson, actually work in a Ruben Amorim midfield where you had to cover a crazy amount of distance. But no, whatever we think, this seems to be Manchester United's most likely first kind of move. And that's what I think a lot of journalists are pushing out there. I think the Chelsea links are probably I don't know, a bit unlikely considering Chelsea will have to move on significant players. But if Chelsea did sell Enzo for potentially big money, then this could be someone they're looking at. I'd guess with the Chelsea situation, though, they might also be looking at younger players as well or cheaper options, which would kind of fit their business model. But at some point, they're going to have to buy some better quality. But in terms of price, Genghis has got a probably you're saying similar to Cunha and Buemo. It could be. I think you'd have to be prepared. If Man United are going to buy this player, they're probably going to have to spend this sort of money. It's not a question of getting a cheap deal. It's going to be. Like, I remember actually last year. I remember talking to people. Like I remember, like Ian, you were a big fan of Belieber last season. You were talking about him at a sort of £100 million price point. Have you changed your mind now, or is it a case of it's still good, but you're looking at like potentially how much is it going to cost this time around? So it is going to be less, isn't it? If Kone was given a season out loan in a first team somewhere, does Believer have better potential than Kone? I suppose it's really difficult to say, isn't it? I think Kone is like essentially you're trying to guess whether a player that's just been loaned out or a player they're still very young and they're still if you consider it they're still younger than people like Toby Collier. I would guess that it's impossible to say at the moment. Like really difficult. Yoni says Coney's out on loan, not doing well, so he's potentially one for the future. But it's a little bit like if you think James Garner. James Garner did quite well initially. Then when he went to Everton, he wasn't as good at the start. It took a little bit of time, but you do see improvements gradually over time. But again, Kone, we're talking about an academy player here. So loan spell, the first Almajoli's first loan spell was a bit of a disaster. Then he went to Sunderland and it was really good. So he went to Rangers, wasn't great. So the first loan spell not going well is a bit of a concern, but I don't think it's going to be. For me, it's not a complete red flag. It's just the next loan might be a better option as well. I just saw Gaz United as well in the chat. So welcome, Gaz. Good to see you. I'll say Fernandez is better than both Belieber and Mainu. So that, and he also has a price that if West Ham get relegated, we're talking about probably a sort of bidding war for Fernandez. He's got a release clause, of, I believe, about 34 million. So he's going to be extremely good deal. So extremely good deal for him. But you're saying he's better than Belieber and Mainu. I think it's difficult to compare him. I think he would be no doubt be a great signing, but it looks a bit like it looks a little bit like at the moment if he stayed at at West Ham, he might cost 70 plus anyway. So he might actually end up costing more than Belieber. But I think you're looking at three different players. The thing about Fernandez as well is Paris Saint-Germain are genuinely interested in him as well. So I know they've got a lot of top quality midfielders, and you would look at Paris Saint-Germain and think like, why do you need more midfielders? But it could be that they're just looking to stockpile. Could be that they're also looking to maybe move one person. Players will move on even at teams like PSG. So it is tricky to try and keep all these players in the same team. And maybe what they're looking at is trying to get a younger player in for the future as well, with the idea that potentially Paris Saint-Germain players will eventually get poached by other clubs as well, like Real Madrid or Manchester City. But yeah, the kind of the pros with Belieber is he is young. So if you like some of the things he can do, you could probably look at it in terms of if you're looking for longer term potential, you could see that Belieber does have an upside. The fact there's been a bit of a knee injury this season, there's been limited minutes, there's been other issues as well, could maybe at least push down the price into a situation where United are, yeah. So, so just I can't read the name this one, but so you're a fan of Belieber, I guess. Thing is though, there is actually quite a few people that still so, despite the fact there's a lot of options out there, there's still actually quite a few people that do think Believer would be a good signing. And again, I think with United, that he would still be a good option, that whether he's starting or not, I think he would be someone that actually kicks on at Manchester United and would improve. So I'm generally quite positive if we did go for this player. I think what would be interesting is I don't believe the Chelsea links too much. And I saw someone saying that Chelsea links is Brighton spreading rumours to scam us for more money. I don't think that's that. It might be the case, but I don't think it can happen. I don't think Chelsea can say what they want, but I don't think there's going to be actually any sort of issues from Chelsea here. I don't think there's any interest in Believer to go to Chelsea. Chelsea might well finish Conference League again, like Chelsea are dropping. So I don't think there's going to be a problem. If you're looking at some of the attributes of Belieber, say, like in terms of like this, like Mike's hit the nail on the head with like some of these, like a lot of energy, great at driving forward with the ball. He was probably one of the best players in the Premier League at driving forward with the ball, picking out passes out of the drive. He was incredibly good at that. It's something Man United don't necessarily have in the team. We have players like Bruno Fernandes got the range of passing. We do have people like, say, trying to think of people like driving the ball forward. Kobe Mainoo not really doing that sort of thing either. Kobe Mainoo for me is going to be someone that's going to be incredibly good at linking defence to midfield or linking midfield to attack. He's someone that makes I think he makes passing under pressure and decision making look pretty straightforward. And I think Mainoo maybe goes under the radar a little bit in terms of how composed he is on the ball. He reminds me a little bit of Roy Keane with like the short passing game, where I rarely see Kobe Mainoo make a bad decision. I rarely see him like rush things and look a bit flustered. And I think with Belieber, you've got someone there that's going to be. For me, it reminds me a little bit of Dorgu in terms of like, Dorgu is able to like drive forward. He's able to get back and defend. Belieber's also very, very highly mobile, able to get back and defend. Strong. I think United need to look at a physical presence in midfield. Does Belieber tick every box we need? I don't think so because we will be losing a lot of experience. And I think you might start looking at too many as someone that potentially bridges that gap. But in terms of a squad option, if you got someone like too many or another experienced midfielder, and I think you're not forced to use Belieber every single match. I think Belieber could develop like pretty well. I think it's going to be this essentially a case of like, do Brighton actually try and play hardball to get 70, or do Man United actually manage to get a sensible deal? Because I think there's definitely a sensible deal to be done here. Brighton are willing to sell. It's been reported over the last, say, week or two that Brighton have actually lined up some players as well. So Brighton have these people ready to go. They're going to make some profit on Baleba. It's not going to be necessarily the insane profit they wanted maybe to get, but I think you have to be realistic that there are a lot of midfield players out there. You can't really 70 million is the too many price, and I don't know. It feels like there's like 50, like 55 to 65 or something like that feels about kind of like the level for this one. And JSN says Wilcox can't make this deal any harder for us. And say 50 million plus additional installments could get this deal over the line. And say if Brighton generally, like, I don't think Brighton can get 70 up front. It just seems to be that deals will be paid in installments anyway. I just don't think that United can pay that sort of money up front. That just feels like too much. Ian's still a fan, so I don't believe this season has any bearing on his ability, but it could have a, yeah, I think it does have a bearing on the price. And the market is going to be, the market's going to be a lot of options there, and a lot of people potentially Man United could look at. Like the Alex Scott situation, for example, people are talking about him as a good option. I know that the Fernandez one I'm not sure on because if there are serious links to Paris Saint-Germain, and I think West Ham paid quite big money for him only 12 months ago. So you're not going to get a cheap deal from West Ham. They're probably looking at 70, 80 plus as well. So they see him as a player that's probably just going to go up in value. So if West Ham avoid relegation, I can't see any sort of sensible deal being done for Fernandez that isn't going to be, in this sort of like Wharton type price. It's going to be quite expensive, isn't it? It's going to be difficult. But I agree with this that the fact that he's actually not played as well is potentially a good thing. That's that when you look at form and go, okay, form is poor, but the ability is definitely still there. And it's the same as like looking at Yoro. People look at Yoro, say in a few games last season, and go, right, he looks really, really good. This season, a bit of a dip in form, and you think, okay, but it doesn't mean that Yoro is suddenly quite bad because then Yoro you can see that there's a lot of good things to his game, but clearly there's weaknesses, and there is big weaknesses in Yoro's game he needs to work on. But then he's a centre back and he's 20 years old, and Manchester United should be looking at trying to work on his weaknesses because Harry Maguire he kind of has to stay here for another year because we don't have someone that can do what he does at the club. So I think with United, we don't have somebody that can do what Baleba does at the club. We don't have that sort of midfield player, and there's not loads of them around. That there are players that can do other things that look very tidy in midfield, but there's players that can drive the ball the way that Baleba drives the ball through midfield. I don't think there is. I don't think there's many of those players around, and it's something that I think United do need to do. We do need to probably get a top quality CDM type player as well. Maybe get someone that is going to be more of a six. But I think United, it's about getting competition in the team, but also about getting different skill sets in the squad. There's definitely some things in the squad that's missing. We don't have maybe Aiden Heaven's like the closest we got to someone that's going to be like a younger version of some of our first team centre backs. He's got physicality, should hopefully be at least dominant in the air. But I think you need to work with people like Maguire, work with the coaches. And we saw at Woodgate Evans working a lot with Aiden Heaven. There was a lot of stuff in the media about that. And now maybe this is it. That Believer would be there. We could get the price down a little bit and say form. Yeah, I think with form and price should be coming down a bit, shouldn't it? And say United side die saying Believer with the right direction. I think this is why I'm quite positive still because I know there's like not good form, but I think that the upside of Believer could be something pretty good. But I know there's a lot of people were actually not very happy with Dorgu when he first joined Manchester United. A lot of people were quite critical. A lot of people were questioning why we got Aiden Heaven. But I think you've got to look at it and say he ticks like quite a lot of boxes of players we don't have at the club, and also that the Premier League is pretty physical. Like you do need to have actually people that can win their duels, win their battles, and in midfield that's something we don't have. Like Casemiro was good at winning his duels. We don't have him next season. Agate was largely disappointing on the ball. Like it was actually, he was okay defensively, but he was largely disappointing on the ball. If you had an option to say you spend 50, was it 50 million euros or 42 million pounds on Agate, and you got a player that's a little bit more expensive in Baleba, I think Baleba is a massive upgrade on Agate, like a really big upgrade on Agate. It's just he's not had the greatest of form, but he will be playing potentially in a midfield that's got Menu, Bruno Fernandes, and maybe a couple of other midfield options as well. Let's say PSG want Fernandes. My point is going to be that Fernandes, we have no idea where he wants to play. And he might be younger than Belieber, but we're talking about people at like 20, 21, 22. I don't think there's loads of difference at this point. I think they're all quite young, developing players, and they're all, if Fernandes has a bad season next season, are people going to say the same sort of thing? It's exactly the same as Mainu. Mainu has a good season. People really rate him. He has a problem, essentially, probably a problem with the head coach as much as anything. And then people probably go too far in the criticism of Mainu. I think he's been good. I think Mainu will be absolutely fine. We're a good quality midfielder alongside him. I say Genghis is saying that Belieber and Fernandez would be the ideal scenario with maybe Scott or Gomez as the third signing. I say preferably Scott for you, high ceiling. Yeah, Alex Scott, João Gomez, Fernandez, Belieber. Those are probably like four players there. You can get those three of those players signed for a sensible price, can you? A sensible price to I think it's going to be not too bad. I mean, the fact we're talking about Belieber, it just feels like the most advanced, most obvious first signing United might make, and they've been looking at him regularly for every single month since the last summer. But this is kind of exactly my point that Chris is making as well. That Manchester United are effectively replacing Casemiro, and we're replacing Agate, and we're probably replacing someone like Toby Collier. So if you're going to replace those three players, Belieber's a big upgrade on two of them at least. And the other person we're talking about is a serial Champions League winner and an elite player in his prime. So I think to replace Casemiro, you have to almost go to Tchouaméni and go, right, who did Real Madrid replace Casemiro with and still carry on winning trophies? And that would be maybe one of the players you could consider. Otherwise, it's going to still be difficult to pick an option. There isn't really an option out there you think that it does actually do what Casemiro does, that's going to be good defensively, very good in the air, great passing forwards as well. So, there's a lot of attributes Casemiro got that we will miss, and Belieber will do different things to Casemiro. Yeah, he can win the ball back a decent amount, but he can drive forward that Casemiro can't do. He can cover gaps that Casemiro maybe can't do, so he could get further forward and actually track back. But he also isn't. He doesn't have the range of passing that Casemiro did. And he doesn't have the so no one. No, I don't think anyone in the midfield has the heading ability of Casemiro in the Premier League. I don't think there's a CDM that can score as many goals as Casemiro did. So that's going to be something United need to work on. But I think we evolve and play differently. I think with Belieber in the team, it would be intriguing. I would say that it would be quite intriguing to see how we actually look at. Um, would you prefer a double pivot of Lavia, Caicedo, or Maino and Belieber? I think Lavia is very injury prone. I don't know. I think Caicedo is good, but I don't see Chelsea really dominating and winning loads of things with Caicedo. I think if you're looking at that situation, then I think actually Maino and Belieber potentially would be better. I mean, like Caicedo is probably the best out of all four of them, but I think Lavia is maybe injury prone, bit of a weak link possibly. But I think that with this one, Co-Main and Belieber, their best days are in the future. So the fact that they're both 21, I think, aren't they? Well, is mate, I believe, 22 now, but they're both extremely young, and no one's talking about a player that's 21 in their peak. Like usually, at Manchester United, you'd have other players ahead of you, and you'd be struggling to get games, not playing every single match. So I think United are building like the midfield for the future. That's why I think we're looking at it and saying like, yeah, with Caicedo, I don't think Caicedo is worth the money. That, that I'm not going to say he's bad. He's obviously a decent player, but I don't see when we play Chelsea. I don't see them creating loads of chances. I don't see Chelsea like they had more possession, but what do they do with it? I just didn't think it was particularly. Um, yeah, maybe it's not the best use of Chelsea's money. They could have maybe fixed other things. Big up to you, Sadek. You're saying, yeah, Casemiro will be. It's largely difficult to replace him, isn't it? But you have to look at the players we're getting and saying that I think we're getting players that are good, but they will also improve. And this is probably like when the midfield conversation happens in the summer and we start seeing deals. This could be one of the situations where Man United are looking at a few options, and Real Madrid, Manchester City, the fact they're actually making moves as well does mean that maybe that's why there could potentially be too many available. And that's why if Rodri goes to Real Madrid, potentially too many is available. And I think Man United are well aware of that. I think too many is pretty high up their shortlist to replace Casemiro. But I think when you're looking at it, Baleba's going to be there as a squad option as well. If you got too many, and maybe you got Mainu, or maybe you feel like there's going to be Alex Scott or somebody else or Baleba, you could be looking at it and saying that Baleba's still a deal that could be done and still be like a good use of like Man United's money trying to buy three midfielders. A big up to you, Kawin. Great calling last night as well. Enjoyed chatting to you. Thanks for getting involved. I say, yeah, Tchouameni ticks more boxes. That he's probably the closest player in a single player to maybe fill the gap that Casemiro is leaving, and I think that's going to be a mixture of experience, not just on the pitch, but around the ground, around like younger players developing. You're going to have someone there that's played at an elite level. You've also got yeah, lots of experience. I think it's going to be also like, not to say ability as well. I think it's going to be potentially an important signing if they could get this deal done. But I think you still got to look at this. Like United are effectively trying to buy a ready-made midfielder that's mid-20s, but also look at the next generation. And believe is probably going to be that next generation with Mainu. And you probably say like too many, or somebody like Angela Stiller, or somebody like Tonali. They would be maybe a little bit older, a bit more experienced, and it could be quite useful in Champions League competition as well to have these players. I mean, someone was pointing out yesterday that too many, some of his best performances have been against English teams in the Champions League. So, yeah, potentially that's a positive as well. I'll say Buadi. I think, like, I don't. I like Buadi. I'm just wondering whether United are. I don't think he's Manchester United's priority at the moment because maybe the price has gone up a little bit regarding Buadi, but I think he's good. And so let's be real. I think yeah, I've made this joke. I think I'm an upgrade to Bayern because at least I can. Well, I suppose at least I wouldn't look scared on the pitch. I suppose no, it's a low bar, isn't it, with this one? But no, I think Belieber. Honestly, if we got him, I think people would be actually surprised next season. I think a lot of people look at the worst case scenario and say, "Believe, yeah, Belieber's going to be incredibly mobile, and it's going to be something completely different, isn't it?" So cheers, Ian. So let's go for this one. Sadek, I know you're one of the people that's very keen on Belieber still, and maybe this is actually quite good news, and maybe it's actually quite no, maybe it is a situation that we could be seeing. Yeah, maybe Man United get a good price. I think last season we thought that maybe it would be a bit too expensive, but maybe we're seeing a situation where the money's actually going to be not too bad. D Hexton said Nacho did us a favour going to Chelsea. He did, didn't he? Is how have we managed to get? We seem to have managed to do this a long time. For how have we managed to get people to go to Chelsea? Like we got Sancho to go there, we got Garnacho to go there. Like back in the day, we managed to get other players to go there. I think um, trying to think who it was. Who didn't work out that went there? There was I can't remember his name now, but there's been a couple of other players that for some reason they've gone to Chelsea after us, but they don't tend to work out there. So that's good. Yeah, the Cornish show was quite an epic last night, but if people want to check it out, we did manage to get quite a few guests on there, quite a few new guests as well to come and have their say. And say, is there a lesson to be learned, maybe from last year's transfer window, when everybody thought there was going to be potentially big money signing, potentially believe it was going to cost, I can't remember how much people thought it would generally cost. I think it was going to be potentially like Caicedo money. That's what Brighton was saying. I think most of us were looking at it thinking that's too much. You have to look at it and say that how much should he cost? And because we went, I think it's because we went in at the end of the transfer window. Brighton didn't actually want to sell him, which I think was sensible because it's the end of the transfer window. And I think this is why spending £100 million on any player, like any player, is actually not. It's not sensible, is it? If you think about it, Real Madrid don't tend to do it. They tend to get players that are running down their contracts. Bayern Munich, they tend to again. They probably spent quite a lot on Harry Kane, but and actually Bayern Munich might have done it if they'd got Florian Wirtz, but that would have also weakened some competition in their league. So I think Bayern Munich don't tend to do that, but they do still pay quite big salaries. Um, but But Real Madrid, I say Manchester City is probably another example. They don't tend to spend 100 plus apart from Grealish. And I think United, it's not like if we're going to sign players for our team, if Anderson wants to join Manchester City, I think we just go, okay, that's fine. We're just going to go somewhere else. Like we don't have to worry about one particular signing. It's not going to be a big issue. Like we can move on and get other players. I think that's going to be the key that we missed out on. If you remember, we missed out on Delap and we missed out on who else did we try and get that we didn't get? There was another player we missed out on, but in the end, it's probably good we did miss out on him. So I think we need to look at it and say it's about getting if United go right, Baleba fits what we want. We like his skill set. We can go for him, but then he's not available. We can just actually go somewhere else and find another player. Actually, Gyökeres. Yeah, we missed out on Gyökeres, didn't we? And we got Sesko. But when I say we missed out on Gyökeres made it clear that he didn't want to play for Manchester United anyway. He wanted Champions League. So we weren't really actually after Gyökeres after we found that out. So uh, it seems that for whatever reason, we seem to have got, I don't know if we got lucky because we would have bought Delap. I think we may have got lucky a little bit. So London Marathon show, you got cramp after 3 hours. It was a good one. I was thinking I might try and put some chapters in so people can see who came on, but the calling show next week will be a bit shorter and it will be a bit pacier. So if people want to come in and tune in and get involved, we will do it again, but we'll try and get people on a little bit less. For people that missed it, like Mr. Chris, then Ryan came on, Berber came on to have a conversation as well about this one. So yeah, really good to see everyone getting involved. And Lucky Singh says not spending £100 million, it kind of kills your budget when you're looking at three midfielders, and it isn't logical. Yeah, it isn't logical, is it? Like we said, I can list about 8 players that you could get any combination of three of them, and they're all going to be. It's going to be under. Yeah, it's going to be under 200 million comfortably for the three. And so Gyökeres wanted Arsenal, Elliot Anderson wants City. Yeah. So Elliot Anderson is kind of like we need to actually just move on and forget about it, don't we? Um, busy laughing at Leeds fans. That's kind of a viable pastime as well, so that's absolutely fine. Is Agate 100% leaving? So Agate is 100% leaving. I did have a graphic say yesterday, but that's something that's been confirmed. I think we all thought it, to be honest. I think we all knew that there's no way that it's like the sort of thing that the only person that well, I think even Agate knew that he was going to leave. Like Agate knows that he's not the level required because you can just watch him play in the Premier League, and like he's just not close to the level, is he? So Agate's going to leave. I don't know where he's going to go, but hopefully that brings in say 30 plus, no 35, 30 million, hopefully, and that's going to be something that can be reinvested if you look at this, can you imagine Man United going right to if we sell Agate for I don't know 30 million, that could be maybe half the value of Believer already. And if you add on Marcus Rashford's salary, you're kind of almost there. So I think this kind of like cost of Believer, I think that most players are costing too much, but when you go above 100 million, it's too much. When you actually go to this value, I think it's actually not too bad. So yeah, we could easily get 7 players in this window if we have sensible transfer strategy, and I think Belieber could be part of that strategy. I don't think Anderson would be like he'd be too expensive. I just shouted to Ducks as well in the chat. I saw your comment. Also, Georgie the bear. You're going to be a good luck bear charm for us today, saying we are looking forward to this. There's going to be a bumper stream tonight. For people that have watched recently, we haven't done watch alongs recently, but we're going to have Helgi on watch along throughout the match. We're going to start off with myself, We Deserve Better, and Helgi probably about 7 p.m. tonight. And then we'll be looking at, we're covering the whole match. Then there'll be obviously a match reaction later as well. You're saying we won't sell, okay, we won't sign 7 players for 250 million. I think you might edge up a little bit more than that. But my point is going to be if Manchester United spend, say, 200, 250 net, but also you look at getting profit in as well, then I think 300 million is achievable considering players should be coming in. And but if you look at, if Baleba's going to be 60, and then you could be looking at, I don't know, Scott like 50-ish, Joe Gomez at maybe what 35, 40. There's a lot of there's a lot of options out there that aren't going to cost crazy money. It might be that some of the options are going to be, if you're looking at Senesi available on a free, Van Hecker is about 35 million. These are good players, and you don't have to get players that are going to be necessarily guaranteed starting players, but you do need to actually build up the squad. If you're looking at getting a left back that potentially is going to be a backup to Luke Shaw, there is potentially that. There's players in the Bundesliga that Man United are looking at. There is like a right back, and I think there's a left back. We're looking at a couple of those sort of players. So I think if you're looking at getting that sort of like, if you're going to spend 250 million, I think you can get a surprisingly decent amount of players. So who's the 30 million pound Brazilian we're linked with? It's not Edison, is it? If it's Edison, he's about 35 million. There was potentially Ryerson is a right back. I think we're linked to. I can't remember if he's Brazilian or not, but that if he is, it could be him. But there is going to be like a right back and left back we're linked to. Gomez 30 million. I suppose Joe Gomez could be a little bit like that sort of price range, but I think it may be like 35 if they get well. Wolves have been relegated for a while, so I think 35 million was going to be the price. It's potentially a bit higher, but let's say 34 million. If you're talking about what's his name, Conceição, the 34 million pound South American player we're looking at, I think he's gonna make his debut for Palmeiras quite soon. Then he's definitely, there was a video on him probably, I can't remember when it was. It might have been last week. So all the information is on that video there if you want to check that out at some point. But it's probably got a picture of the player. He's playing in the green kit. He's about to make his debut. He's playing going to play for the same team that Esteban played for, but he's going to get through at a bit of a younger age. So it's kind of that sort of player you're looking at. That maybe one in a couple of years' time would be looking at, maybe if he develops really well, potentially that one. A big up Metric Bay. Good to see you, Mitch. Yeah, I can't really message you because I don't know if you're on social media, but yeah, if you want to reach out, I can explain. But yeah, beyond my control a little bit, not ideal, but good to see you. I have like resubscribed to your channel as well. I appreciate that, my friend. And maybe potentially, it's going to be a busy summer, I think, for Man United. So potentially, if you're interested in collaboration at some point, either channel, we can discuss that. That would be quite cool. Kate saying Mount costs 60, Gotti costs 50. Yeah, this is the thing. The players we're looking at now, we're looking at better options now. So Mason Mount 60 million, Agate 50, then Alex Scott, João Gomez, Baleba, Angela Stiller. These are all better players, aren't they? So the key thing is you get better quality players, then it's going to improve. Things are going to get a bit better in the right direction, aren't they? Yeah, no worries. I think what I'll do, I'll pin socials to the chat as well for people that are new. I don't know if I've done that. I might have done that. Let me just check. I can't remember if I pinned the socials to that one, but yeah, let me just pin the socials because I'm pretty rubbish at forgetting. But there is a Discord, Twitter, and things. If you want to follow, I would say that Jim's doing a great job of posting information on the socials as well, and it is kind of our way of kind of messaging, like communicating with people. So let's just put that in the chat. So this is just the social. I'm not particularly active on Twitter. I usually use it for a bit of research more than anything. But so put this in there. And at the moment, this is like this is the closest poll ever. I think I priced it a roughly the right amount. That say 60 or 70 million pounds is pretty much on the money for where Believer should cost. And it's kind of 50-50 whether you think it's a good deal. But I think this is literally the deal. It's going to cost that sort of amount. So if you haven't voted, please vote because I think it's like about as close as it could be. That Kate saying Stiller will cost 70 to 80 million pounds. That apparently Stuttgart are putting a price of they bought back his release clause, and they want to get offers of I think 50 million pounds upwards. So I don't think they can charge loads more than that because if you do, there's just other options. And I don't think you can be that. I think all these players have got a certain level you can charge. If Tchouameni's available for 70 million pounds, I think there has to be like a benchmark for if you're looking at Tchouameni 70 million, and we know he's on a big salary. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any actual. I don't think you can charge above that for Angela Stiller. So it's again for me, it's like got to be a sort of a price cap. So I mean, to be honest, if Manchester United didn't have Xerxes or Agati in our squad now, and we used that money and invested in any one of the sort of five midfield players I've just mentioned that would be that price, we'd actually have a better squad. So I don't mind. I don't mind Xerxes as a player. I just don't think it's a Manchester United player. Not because of any other reason apart from what does Xerxes do that would be beneficial to our team. Like we have, I think our forward players all have to carry like significant goal threat. I think we have to have players all across the front that can score goals. I don't think Xerxes can do that. Welcome, Howard. There's going to be a very big stream tonight, 7 p.m. onwards, covering the match. I don't know if people watch alongs, but Helgi will be hosting the watch along. We'll be live before the match as well. When we get when the lineup comes out, we'll be on there to discuss that and maybe look at the Brentford lineup as well, see what we think is going to happen. Then we'll cover the watch along, and then after that we'll do the big post match player rating type stream. So a lot to happen tonight. That's why this stream won't be particularly long. I know there's been some long streams recently, but this will be a little bit shorter because we're going to be quite busy tonight. Pre-match routine kicking in. Is that like a lot of Guinness? Definitely. I look forward to like some alcohol fueled comments later on in the stream. Hopefully we're going to have like a good match tonight. I feel like it's going to be quite a good one. So Beliebers got a 15% sell-on clause. It's no wonder that Brighton want quite big money. So 15%, but it tends to be 15% on profit, doesn't it? So if you're looking at 15%, then I don't know how much Brighton bought him for, but 15%, it's not a bad sell-on clause, but they're still looking at significant profit. If they sold him for 60 and they bought him for like 20, it's only like 15% would be about 6 million of the 40 million. So it's still going to be significant profit, isn't it? That I think when you look at the sell-on clause, it's only on the profit. So say Caicedo was 20% sell-on clause. I think yeah, you can see that though, but also the teams that are selling Baleba, that are selling Caicedo, they know what they're doing. They know what they're putting in there. So it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So you need to get these deals. This is why when Man United sold Greenwood for a fairly cheap price of about 25 million, they put in there's a 50% sell-on clause. So that is significant. So 20 and 15% is good, but United's sell-on clause for Greenwood is massive. It's like 50 to 60%. I'm lucky you're saying that United will get him for, I believe, for 68 million. Are you at the match? Are you, Howard? A nice one. I think there's like a couple of other match day fans that do tune in. JR is one of them that he'll be watching the match. It'd be good to get some different views and say, yeah, he went quickly, but he did. It was like 25 million, wasn't it? Are you thinking like when you see that United tax, are you suspecting that Man United overpay for new signings? Because I think if you look at the signings, I would say like Chelsea probably got fleeced last year. Chelsea paid 60 for Gittins. Man United paid the same sort of money for Cunha. So I think I know the Man United tax seems to have been a thing, but I don't think we overpaid for a lot of players recently. That maybe we had to pay big for, no, maybe we had to pay big for Sesko, but then every striker was costing the same amount, wasn't it? So yeah, I think it's a lot, but you have to pay a lot of money. I don't think you're going to get a cheap deal anywhere else. I'm just trying to think. Did Man United overpay for Baleba? So for Mbuemo, I think that was about market value. We got Lamans in pretty cheap. So I get the feeling that if you remember last season, the energy towards the Bleibus deal by Barada was, we've got a price, we're not going to go above that. And I think we might have the same for Brighton. I still think that the power's in Man United's hands because Belieber wants to join Manchester United. And I still think we should leverage that to some extent and go, look, this is the price we value him at. I still think United are looking at Belieber as going to be one of the preferred options. And I think what they're looking at is like Belieber can do different things to say looking at the what are the other options out there. So if you're looking at maybe Adam Wharton, Belieber's a very different player to Adam Wharton. I know I know there was a source saying that Adam Wharton and Koeman are too similar. I still think they're different, but I think that Belieber might be like if you were looking at picking two midfield players in your midfield, like two players, and the players you've got to choose from are Koeman and you've got Wharton and you've got Baleba. I think Baleba would probably have to be there because I think he balances it out with his work rate and mobility. I think Adam Wharton and Mainu, you might need a bit more pace in the Premier League is a different league to other leagues. So yeah, I think you would look at it and say that, but Baleba's got a skill set that is in demand, and it is a bit interesting that there hasn't been lots of other clubs interested in him. But I think part of that might be down to United's kind of progress in the deal. It's a little bit like Man United aren't really doing for too much for Anderson because we feel like Anderson is going to be not the not no not wanting to join Man United. So I think the Anderson thing has gone extremely cold from Man United's point of view because they don't think it's worth progressing. I think United are pretty much with Anderson like we were with Gyökeres. We probably said, look, if he's not going to go to City, the same like with Gyökeres, if he's not going to go to Arsenal, then let us know. But it seems that there's an offer on the table for Anderson at City, and we're not going to be at that table, unfortunately. Cohen's got a good point saying if you're looking at overall fee and money, then Brighton might think that £80 million is actually not a bad fee for someone that salary might not be very high at United. I guess Belieber, it was thought that he's on 12.5k. Someone about a week ago, it might have been Yarley, but someone was saying that maybe he's on like 70k, 80k a week now. That's still, now compared with Man United salaries, that's not very high. I'd imagine that Baleba would go on something similar to Kobe Mainu. And Kobe Mainu's contract, apparently the details are something along the lines of like 120-ish plus a 30 bonus for getting Champions League. So I think Kobe Mainu will be on about 150 next year, but base salary is about 120, I believe, which is actually very, very similar to Euro. So people that were questioning the pay structure at United, I think Kobe Mainu is on roughly the same as Euro, give or take a little bit same sort of bonuses. And I think Baleba would probably come in on the same sort of deal. Like if Baleba joined United, I think it's almost like incredibly likely that he'd be on almost the same contract as Kobe Mainu. They're practically the same age. They're probably the same with experience. They've probably both got the same experience. I mean, I don't know how he struggles on 12k. It is obviously an outrage, isn't it? No, but I think what you're looking at here is that if Man United bought him, they could put him on 120k, which what's that? £6 million a year salary compared with Casemiro that was on 300k. So you're looking like 18 to 20 million per year. It could be that a player like Too Many could cost you about £50 million per year in salary more than Belieber. So if you factor in like a few years of that sort of salary, potentially you're looking at say £40 million difference. So I think Brighton they know that Man United would probably pay more for Baleba because the contract would be a lot lower. And I think for United, you've got to look at the overall cost. The most expensive deal we can do this summer is probably too many. That's probably going to be the most expensive salary plus transfer fee. But that's why I think too many is like no, too many is not 100 million. He's 70,000 because his salary is going to be high. And it's kind of the Rashford situation. Like Rashford, we can't sell him for 60, 70 million because he's on whatever he's on, like 300K or something. It's on a very high salary. So it's definitely a factor. That's why Agate will sell. That's why Xerxes will sell. They're not on on ridiculous salaries. They got sensible salaries. So let's have a look at some of the comments. I saw a comment saying fantastic point by Cody. So let me try and find that comment. So is this the one where you're saying if they bluff, they can't afford to mess up again? That with Brighton, it's they should be mindful of like deals they've tried to do in the past that haven't worked out. And also, there's a few players, definitely a few players that you look at that Crystal Palace tried to cash in on Gahey. It didn't work out. So you have to be mindful that if you try and get the best possible price, you might well miss out and you might not get what you need from this one. So I remember Shearer smashing the 10K a week wage barrier. We walked away. I know 10K is probably like a bonus now, isn't it, for that? No, I remember like Man United spending like 40 or 50 on I don't know how much it was going to be, but yeah. Which ones are rubbish? um, welcome, Luca. Nice to speak to you last night as well. If we ship out Xerxes and Agate, you're going to be quite impressed. But who's buying them? So interestingly, I don't rate them at all. That I think Xerxes I could see actually working in a different team, but Agate it's a struggle. But bizarrely, Agati does pretty well at international level, suggesting that other leagues might actually be suitable. So I don't know where I'd go with Agate, but I think Man United apparently it was like Galatasaray were interested, and with Xerxes we turned down offers from Juventus. I don't know why we turned down offers because the fact we had a sensible offer, I would have just sold him last year. I think it was like last January, not the January that's just been, but the year before. We could have sold Xerxes that early, and we could have actually replaced him with a player that I think just fits better. I never really understood what it was with Xerxes that Man United fans really love. There's nothing wrong with Xerxes as a person. There's nothing wrong with like some things he's okay at, but I think the Premier League was probably a bad fit for Xerxes. But it seems that, like as Jarly said, it seems that there's a lot of teams interested in Xerxes. I think Roma were one. I think Napoli were one. I think Juventus made like serious inroads to try and buy him. So there was definitely a few teams that wanted him, and I think there's still going to be offers on the table. Like for Xerxes, whatever reason it is, like Xerxes is a player that people do like abroad. But Premier League is a tough one. So I think Premier League is just it's just like a different pace, isn't it? I think that Xerxes just, I think he might be better in a slower league. I think Serie A seems to be about the best situation. You're saying he works best in a team with two strikers, being the person behind the striker. That sounds like it's like Bruno Fernandes' area on the pitch. I think Xerxes was never going to work at Man United, but he could have been a player that I think we signed the wrong player, to be honest. I think we could have signed somebody else instead. And maybe, for Xerxes, he'll go back to Serie A, but it could be decent money. Like it could be like 35 million. So it could be okay. And that's effectively what we paid for him. So I think it was too much, like too high too soon. It feels a little bit like I'm just trying to think of other examples, but there's some players that just like Mkhitaryan looked really good, and he comes to the Premier League, it just never really worked out for him. But I think Xerxes will be fine. I think Xerxes knows that he's going to be leaving, but uh, the only thing I've got memories of Xerxes is he was really good when we beat Arsenal in the FA Cup in that match. He put in a good performance there. I'll say Real saying that you read somewhere there was an option to switch him and Edison, which that would actually like Edison at Atalanta, that would have been a good deal. If we had talked about this like 18 months ago, that would have been a really good deal. I think he could have definitely helped us this season. Lucas says Baleba is going to be good. If you get him for 60 million, you're saying what if Man United switches a few players? I don't know if there's any players we can send to Brighton because I think Agati and Xerxes will definitely be like non-Premier League players quite soon. I don't think they'll be staying, and I don't think we've got actually got much to swap out at the moment. Like they're not going to take Rashford, are they? They're not going to take Anana. They're not. Most of the players we're moving on, I think, are going to be like no, they're not going to be in the Premier League anymore, are they? Would the Premier League be considered a farmers' league now? I mean, I suppose this one that if you look at the Champions League, then I don't think it's a farmers' league. But I think it's like the Premier League wasn't considered a farmers' league when Man United dominated it because also Manchester United got to say quite a few Champions League finals, and I think at the moment you still got Premier League teams winning Europe fairly regularly. I think at the moment it's probably going to be. I think if, from the outside, you probably look at it like last season, Liverpool won the league. If Arsenal won the league this season, it would be 2 years since City won it, and it would be a few different teams. So I think it depends. Like City aren't dominating the league; it's actually pretty competitive at the moment. And maybe maybe next season they do actually do better, but no, let's say you actually think he'd be a good deal. So based on the comments and based on the voting, I put in there saying like, would you sign, would you sign Baleba for 60 to 70 million? Because I don't think the price is going to be more than 70. It might be that the total deal ends up being close to it with add-ons. So are we looking at something that if you're watching now and you think Belieber, like whatever you think, just what would be a sensible price to go for? Like what would be your price where you go, actually, this deal, get it done for this sort of money? Because I would say that I thought 60 might be actually a good price. If we're looking at, but I think with Brighton, it might be that you have to get close to 70. It might be like 55 plus add-ons. I think we're going to be going in a very similar sort of strategy with the Embuemo deal. I think Embuemo was ended up, it was like, was it 45 plus 5 to start with? Then it was like 55 plus something. I think United need to go in there with, yeah, if we think we can get the deal done for I don't know, 60-ish. Like, I don't think it's going to be lower than, it's not going to be as low as 50, 55. I think maybe United should go in with a sensible offer that's maybe like 55 plus 10 add-ons, that sort of price. And Boba says, we will certainly be getting him, but watching him even in the football market now, you see a £40 million player. I think we look at form, that's what I'm thinking of. Because if you look at him this season, you don't necessarily see that sort of player. I think United are probably looking at what is he good at, what can we work on, and they're seeing like a £60 million player in a couple of seasons, and then maybe like an £80 million player when he's 25, possibly. That's what I'm thinking of regarding this one. Like Dorgu was Dorgu a £25 million player? But maybe we're looking at him going up in value now. And if potentially, if Dorgu kicks on, say next season, I think this season, I'm not sure how many games he's going to play, but we could be seeing a player that maybe Dorgu's valued at maybe like 35, £40 million in a year's time. And you think, actually, that's quite a good deal. But I think that you have to be realistic that if he comes to Man United, he's not suddenly going to be like that 70, £80 million player. It does take a bit of development, but it's probably down to United actually looking at what else is available and thinking that he's still got the skill set they want. It could also be one of the key things in this is going to be Christopher Vivell and other scouts and people around the team. They're deciding what sort of team they want, what sort of players do they want. If you want someone that's able to drive the ball through midfield, we probably lost that when we sold McTominay, and we probably haven't had a player that can drive through midfield since Pogba. Maybe I'm just trying to think. Have we seen like the players we've had recently in midfield? Like I wouldn't say Fred is like a Yaya Toure type player. I wouldn't say I think Baleba could be like the one player that maybe could be more similar to Pogba, someone that can physically hold off, run strongly, drive through midfield, and maybe that's what they're looking at. Maybe they're looking at having that sort of player. You could potentially look at getting a CDM behind him, and maybe they see Belieber as being that sort of player. That's what I'm just saying in terms of like where he's going to be in terms of like a couple of years' time. He's obviously got one sort of skill set. the question is going to be: would he look a different player at Manchester United behind Bruno Fernandes or alongside Mainu, possibly alongside Tchouaméni, potentially Tonali or someone like that? And then maybe it's going to be a different situation. I mean, Brighton have got a good team, but I think player for player, Brighton don't have amazing players throughout their team, and there is a lot of expectation on Believer too. Might be one of the best players. Let's say yeah, I think with this one, I think competition across like the board with United makes it not a farmers league. That it's probably the one team where there's loads and loads of competition. Like for if we're looking at this, like in England, in the Premier League, you can look at the bottom teams and you can look at all the teams getting relegated. And we're looking at West Ham and we're looking at Wolves, and we're all picking out several players we think are genuinely top quality players. And these are the no, the worst teams in the Premier League. So the fact the worst teams in the Premier League has like a Fernandez, has like a João Gomez, I think that's the Premier League won't be a farmers league. There's literally too much quality in the league at the moment. So so whenever you see players, the first thing you do is compare them to what we've had in the past. With Belieber, I see Fred. I don't know. I hope not. Right? I hope not because I know Fred was one of these players that ran around a lot, but he was kind of awful and good at the same time in a lot of things. So I think Fred was like I don't think Fred actually did too much wrong a lot of the time, but he sometimes was inconsistent a lot of the time. So I think Fred could like suddenly, go on a bit of a run, finish off a chance that actually looked quite good. But in the same match, he'd also go missing, mess up, and give the ball away. So I don't know. I think Fred was just inconsistent, but you couldn't really question his work ethic, and he kind of did a job, didn't he? Put it that way. But I think with Fred, you kind of needed to get an upgrade on him. But no, I hope you're wrong, Berber, because we need a better quality player than Fred. That Fred was a bit limited, but I didn't dislike Fred. Yeah, you got to credit his work rate, his heart for the game, but I don't think he was ever the right signing, really, was he? He's one of these players that you spent £50 million on, but you probably should have spent a bit more money on him. Cena says Fred. So problem was not Fred. He had a lazy team, passed him backwards. We had okay. I think when we had Fred and we had McTominay, we had a lot of issues in the team that went beyond any player. I think we had a bizarre setup that we always had too much space in midfield. So I think at the moment, if you look at Michael Carrick and how the team set up, I think most midfielders would come in and actually look a bit better. Um, what are you talking about? Um, you've never spoken to me about Herrera. So that's a weird comment. Fred couldn't pass. He was a bit inconsistent, wasn't he? I think Fred and McTominay both had their good points, but they both were a bit, yeah, both were a bit inconsistent. McTominay was probably a player that we could have still benefited from this season. I think he could have maybe been one of these players that would have been a good upgrade and maybe actually as a backup striker. That as crazy as it sounds, he did play striker when he was younger. I think McTominay might have been quite a good option for that. I think the closest we got to was maybe Matic, Pogba, and Bruno Fernandes. That might have been the closest we got, but I think we needed to probably get a different player from Matic. But yeah, Keno skulls and butts, so to be honest, but then the midfield then was pretty much we were playing 4-4-2, so you probably have Giggs and Beckham in that midfield. Yeah, no, it kind of needs to be like a reset now, doesn't it? So do you think Belieber like this is probably get if Man United sign Belieber, what do you think the reaction is going to be by Christmas time, for example? Do you think people will look back on this as a good signing? If he costs, say, 60 million, so I said this, how much would you pay? Like 54% of people would pay 60 to 7. So what would be the top end you pay? It has to be at least 50. Yeah, Herrera was good. Herrera was good. I think he wanted a bigger contract than Man United wanted to give him. I think Scott McTominay is a little bit underrated. So you're going for like 60 million top for you. Is 60 million the yeah, Scott McTominay, wasn't he our second highest goal scoring player when we sold him to Napoli? I think that was an indication of like we definitely didn't sell the right players. We sold we sold players we could sell, but we didn't necessarily sell the players we should have moved out. Scott McTominay, he'd have been a better player up front than Rasmus for sure. But I think we may as well played with a false nine and then just brought McTominay off the bench and have Rasmus. Yeah, 60 million. Yeah, I guess if you're going to pay 60K a week, Brighton will not be interested. We sold them and bought Mount. Yeah, it wasn't a very sensible plan, was it really, to be honest? I think when we looked at it, it wasn't the most sensible strategy. So let me just have a quick recap of some of the stories we're talking about today. So the Believer situation was kind of like the lead story because a few journalists have been putting out information that the first time I've seen for a while that Brighton are actually looking to sell, it looks like we know what the price is going to be. So it's going to be, they want 70, we want 50. I'm guessing 60 gets the deal. 60 plus five add-ons, that's my final offer. And then we go for it. I'm not going to talk about Anderson anymore unless something dramatic happens, like maybe Man City buy Enzo, or maybe Manchester City decide to keep him Rodri and get an Enzo. But so I'm going to kind of like assume that that's not going to happen. So that's my stance with that. I think he'd be a good option, but I think actually £100 million, I don't think it's worth it. That he's good, he's a very good player, but I think £100 million, I think it's a bit too much. That I think for 100 million, I would go for if we can get Baleba plus João Gomez instead of Anderson. I think that's actually better use of 100 million. Or if you've got Angela Stiller plus João Gomez, I think that's actually maybe a better use of 100 million. So I know Anderson is my top target, has been, but I think if he is 100 million, it's too much. If he was a sensible price, yeah, I'd say 67 million final offer. That's a bit too close, isn't it? That's a bit too close. A bit too close. If look, maybe this is a quick question for people because I saw this comment. Quick question, and actually, James Garner's an interesting one, Mike, because I know there's an Everton channel called Falcon Blues, and they're based in a pub in Merseyside, and big Everton fans. I remember seeing that he did an interview with Tony Cottee and ex-Everton professionals. There are a lot of match-going fans on that channel, and when we sold James Garner to them, I was asking about. I was asking them, "What do you think of James Garner?" And this is probably going back to the first season he played for Everton. And at that time, they were saying they think he's like good, but they didn't think he was. They didn't think Man United made a mistake. So I think at the time they Everton fans were saying James Garner's decent, but they didn't think he was it's a massive mistake by Man United to sell him. But he's obviously developed quite well. So if you look at James Garner as an example, okay, if you look at James Garner as an example, look at Kobe Mainu and imagine Kobe Mainu with another couple of years development like James Garner. So James Garner, I thought fundamentally had some ability, but obviously he had to develop, had to improve. And I think if you look at Kobe Mainu, be a bit patient with Mainu, be very patient with Aiden Heaven because he's barely played, and also look at Yoro. These players will improve, and I think it's about being a bit like patient. Like Alvaro Fernandez, James Garner should be a warning to Man United that they're saying we're not patient with younger players, especially defensive ones. And I think yeah, Aiden Heaven and Yoro are like 19 and 20. So 19 and 20, and already people I've seen like big content creators already writing these players off. I think it's crazy. I think you need to look at Yoro, maybe take him out of the team for a couple of games, maybe bring him back in alongside Maguire, some experience, and work with them, work with the coaches. They're the sort of if United sign younger players, you have to be patient because they're not going to drop into the team like Eric Cantona and win you the league. You've got to assume they're going to be taking a little bit of time to develop. I think Kobe Mainoo is a really good player, and there's so much negativity about it. But if you think Mainu with better coaching, like say James Garner, how much he's improved from a couple of years, Mainu will improve the same. And over 2 years' time, we might be talking about a top quality player. And it might be the first player we've had through our academy that's going to play for significant years. And I think there's going to be, like, in terms of this, you say Kobe's just missing the striking power to take his passing to a top level, and say he can see the long pass but can't make it yet. It's also, yeah, I think like with Kobe Manu, I think he's got the short passing game like Roy Keane had, and I think he's got the ability to pick out pass. He's got very quick thinking as well. I think he's definitely got all these sort of basics. Really, his composure is great. His mentality is great. That he's not he's not overwhelmed by big occasions like on the biggest stage for England. He doesn't kind of like fade in the pressure. He actually steps up. I think Mainu is going to be someone that improves year after year. He's 21, just turned that. Imagine what he's going to be at 25 if he improves a little bit each year. I think it could be pretty exceptional. The thing is, like, there is going to be some weaknesses. So maybe striking power is something he can work on as well. I think finishing is actually quite composed. I think if he actually gets further forward, he's actually quite a good player to link up the attack as well. I think he makes some nice passes, nice decisions. But I think he doesn't have the long range passing that someone like Cunha has, or someone like actually Marcus Rashford had a good range, like a decent long range passing as well. Remember the cup final against City, but I think Kane Mainoo's not there yet, and Bruno Fernandes, Cunha are probably examples. Even like Maguire has got long range passing out of defence. I think this is something that Kane Mainoo can work on, but I don't think there's many midfield players that are 21 that don't have much to work on, and that's something that instantly he'll become an improved player. So when Scholes broke in, people saw like some definite positives to him, but it has to takes time to work on things, like 100%. So the other question I had was, if Man United say we got Baleba done as our first deal, what would be deal number two for people? Yeah, I think I'm quite patient with Manu, and I think other people are maybe patient. I'm just honestly thinking if Man United get Manu for the next 10 years, and you got maybe Belieber, like Ryan said, this is potentially on midfield for like a decade. It could be that sort of for a decade, but they're both going to improve a lot. The question for me is going to be if you get Belieber done first, my next move would be like, can we get someone that's got experience in? I quite like Angela Stiller, but part of me would go, too many would be quite nice. But I think too many is quite difficult. So if in the back of my mind I'm thinking too many or Angela Stiller as an experienced option, I'm then thinking maybe Joe Gomez, maybe Alex Scott as like the third one. It's kind of tricky, isn't it? So it's kind of difficult. I think United can't really wait to find out if too many is available. And I'm not sure that I would say for me, I think Tonali might be edging towards the too expensive, although it might depend on how much Man United really rate him for that one. And if this is true, if Anderson costs 125 million, then I think that is there's no way he's worth that amount. He's good, but I mean 125 is just adding like an extra 25 million on for no good reason. It's too much money. But Anderson doesn't make me think like he's the next Roy Keane. He's good, but it just feels like it's too much. He's still only one player, and it's still going to be. There's still no guarantee that Anderson actually starts every game at City either, because City they spent 100 million on Grealish. They stopped using him in a lot of games, and they had players like Mahrez, who I think was like an incredible player, just didn't get too many games either. So one of the I don't know. I don't know. Say City's new Calvin Phillips. I mean, Calvin Phillips was highly rated when he moved to City, and what happened? Like he literally, people forgot he was a football player. And say Tottenham, yeah, is that regular? I mean, do you mean relegated? I kind of hope that does happen, but I mean, if Tottenham get relegated, I wouldn't actually buy a single player from Spurs. I know Van der Ven's been linked, but I think he's too expensive and a bit. I'm not. I'm a bit dubious of whether it's worth it as well. I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay, but it was. I thought it was a bit. I was a bit surprised that City bought him. I think City bought him as like a definite backup, like a definite backup. So when I looked at him going to City, I was thinking, well, he's just there in case someone gets injured. So I wasn't really surprised that that was the case. So it's like when it's like I saw Evan Ferguson play an amazing game, but it was literally about two or three games, and then it was okay. He's definitely not worth that to start with. It's just yeah, no. Just my question then: what is if Man United sign Belieber first? What's the second deal you want us to do? If you can pick one player to sign after Belieber, what's the deal? And at the moment, the polls 57% are wanting Belieber at that sort of money. So just imagine Belieber got done. What's deal number two? Just to see some names in the chat, see what people think as well. I'd say, yeah, Liverpool, Isak and Wirtz. Exactly. Paying big money for players doesn't work out. I mean, Isak and Wirtz are on the face of it, they should be good players next season. But yeah, it's still too much. It's too much. So people are talking like it's the next Lothar Matthäus. I mean, Lothar Matthäus was outstanding. That's what I mean. That some of these players could turn into this, but they're not this level yet. The only thing that could happen would be possibly like a big World Cup maybe changes things. So let's go for some of the names of people you'd like to see. Lucky Singh says Fernandez and Alex Scott we can talk to. Yeah, if West Ham get relegated, Fernandez, we should go in with an offer straight away before Paris Saint-Germain. I think we can offer maybe a quicker route to the first team, and also maybe he wants to stay in the Premier League. Who knows? But Alex Scott definitely. I think Alex Scott should be on the list. Centre back, another centre midfielder simultaneously. Any centre backs you like? Like, do you like Senesi on a free? Do you like Kirkes a bit more expensive? Maybe like 35-ish. I've seen Murillo as the player Man United still like, but he's going to be really expensive. I think he's good, but he's going to be really expensive. Patrick Bamford, yeah, I remember him. He was more in the lower league, wasn't he? So Angela Stiller should be the first player United gets as Yali. Yeah, he's definitely on the list, isn't he? I wonder whether Real Madrid are serious about him as well. And if they say 70 and we say 50, then I'm sure a deal for 60 plus 5 will happen with good payments for us. So not a lot up front. It could be like 20 million a year over 3 years, couldn't it? And maybe 5 million for Champions League qualification or something like that. If it feels like it's a deal to be done, doesn't it? When you consider potentially, say, people were talking about 80 to 100 million, if it becomes like 60 million, 20 million per year, I think it's sensible. All we know is that Brighton will take that 20 million from the first instalment and instantly buy a replacement for Baleba and probably pocket the rest. So that would make a bit of sense. So you're going to exactly, Blah. Exactly. It seems like meet in the middle, doesn't it? Like the story seems to be um, maybe the question is going to be like if Brighton wants 70, Man United wants 50, who's got the best negotiation? And I would say probably Brighton. So I'd say yeah, expect to pay maybe closer to 70 rather than 50. So if we get it for 60, I think it'd be actually quite good negotiation. I think they're looking at paying a bit more than that. Lewis Hall says Chris. Yeah, good, not bad choices to be honest. There isn't really many bad players linked to United. That's why I feel that is that when we were linked to strikers last year, the ones I profiled were we talked about Ekatike, and in the end, the price I said he might cost, he ended up actually costing that amount because people said there's no way United paid that. In the end, Liverpool paid that. So add Ekatike to Florian Wirtz and Isak as three very expensive players that Liverpool bought. But Ekatike was there. We had Gyökeres, we had Sesko. I think we might not have talked about Walter Maida, but we did talk about Arakadare, who also moved to the Premier League. So we talked about three players that are roughly the same amount of money, and they're all pretty good options, to be honest. I think Ekatike's had a really good season. Well, I say really good. I think he's had a decent season. A bit unfortunate recently with his injury, but I think Sesko's had like a decent season. I'd say from Romero, say Michael Carrick on centre backs ahead of the summer transfer window. Say it's not an area of concern for me at this moment in time. I think with like Michael Carrick doesn't even know if he's here, does he? I mean, no, I think with this one that I saw something similar, Yali, and they got 5 players there. They feel like they've got enough cover. They must be hoping that Delit's going to be playing some games. I mean, no one knows what the issue is with Delit, so maybe Delit's back and it's not a problem. as well. Okay, that could be useful. If you can find a way of remembering how to spell too many, that would be good. Because at the moment I kind of copy and paste and type it out. It's not the easiest one. Mike says you like Lewis Hall, but you can't see the Geordies selling him to United. I think the Geordies are honestly wanting to only sell one of their first team, and I think they'd rather sell Gordon. But if they sell Tonali, they're only going to sell Tonali if he's more money than Gordon. So it might be that Gordon's pushing for a way out, and then maybe Tonali stays, unless United actually make a serious offer. Pretty tricky. As they do have six with Fredrickson. I kind of forgot Fredrickson, so I guess with that you could add that. So they have got a few. They'd probably say that they've got three younger centre backs, three more experienced centre backs. I'm just a bit concerned with the injuries with the older centre backs. I mean, we have seen Mazraoui, we have seen, we have seen like potentially other players could fill in at centre back, but I don't really like that ideally. Like it's a long season. I don't think we can be relying on Mazraoui to kind of bail us out as a centre back. That we should be avoiding that sort of situation. I mean, maybe we got unlucky actually because they're not necessarily injured, are they? That Harry Maguire suspension, Lissandro Martinez suspension, so it's kind of like stupid kind of reasons why they got this one. So Alex's dream window is too many Bawardi, Bastoni, or Slotterbeck. Yeah, Slotterbeck is he's one that's been on the list. He's I think he signed a new contract, but the idea is that he would be looking to sell him for about 40 million. So but too many Buwadi, that would be. I'm guessing United might look closer to home. I think Buwadi plus too many. You'd probably be looking at a Premier League player alongside that for the midfield if you got those in. But no, Buwadi would be one for the future, wouldn't he? An 18-year-old. If you got then Kobe Manu plus Baleba plus too many, that for me would be quite a good mix. Like I think Baleba, you got Buwadi, who'd be very good as a backup to Tchouaméni in the future. So potentially that would be quite good. But that would be kind of quite ambitious for Man United to get those players in. I think Bawadi, like yeah, I'd say Bawadi's a prospect for me. Like too many is your first team player, but I quite like that because you've got one player that's yeah. If you get one player that's like 25, 26, who's going to walk into the first team with all the experience too many's got, then Bawadi would be a good signing because realistically, he's not going to be getting into the first team as much, but he is still like a really good prospect that could be a good option. I'd say Polina could be available for 30 million as well. Didn't he score a decent goal recently? He's somebody that I think might be a little bit old. So no, I've said this as well. I said Cavashalia would be a good signing. If I'm not sure if that's pronounced incorrectly, I'm sorry, but I think people know what I'm talking about. He was available. This is why I say you don't need to pay crazy money. He was available for about 59 million pounds when they bought him from Napoli. He was a great player. If we were looking to buy someone like a Rafael Leao, which I talked about this morning, because we were at no, we were at the San Siro last night. We were scouting Leao. I don't think he had a great game. I think we looked like Kvaratskhelia as a sort of player that we should have been looking at 2 years ago. I'm guessing that Man United were in a bit of a mess, so Paris Saint-Germain were a better option. But for me, that shows you can get value. Like Kvaratskhelia is way better than Rafael Leao at the moment. Like really good player to watch. I think he'd be the sort of player that Man United fans would love to see at the club. So, do I think the Edison transfer link is credible or is going to Atletico? So, I think the story is that Atletico Madrid have agreed terms with Edison. Edison, like, as far as I know, is quite keen to go. And the only problem is Atalanta want too much money. So I think Man United are effectively kind of he's on the list, but he's not a priority. And I think the price is about 35-ish million, that sort of price. So I think at the moment that there are links, but I don't know how much Man United are interested. If Edison wants to go to Atletico, I don't know why Man United would be getting involved because it would feel a little bit like United would have to make a yeah they'd have to make a case to try and get him to join Man United. So I don't know. I think at the moment that Edison's like about 26, isn't he? He's got a lot of experience, but he's never played in the Premier League. He's played in Italy. I don't think he's going to be. He's not going to be the same sort of level as a too many. So I think there's links there, and Mike. But I'm not sure Man United see him as a priority. I think he's like on the list because he's been like a lot of it's come from a lot of it's come from his agent and trying to also Atalanta want to get some profit. So I hope that answers your question, Mike. I think he's definitely linked, and Man United have looked at him in the past, but I don't think he's like in the top sort of few players they're looking at. Apparently, there was one journalist yesterday or the day before, and they said the only player that Man United are looking at seriously in La Liga is going to be too many. I think the only player we're looking in Germany is Angela Stiller. There's not many players we're looking at. So the fact that we don't seem to be linked to any players in Serie A, I don't really see it happening. If it does happen, then yeah, I'll be a bit surprised. But it just seems that it seems like Atletico are almost there. Thoughts on this realistic answer? So you got is this for like is this for like next year? So you got Lamens, Dallo, De Ligt, Maguire, Dorgu. This is like okay, Dorgu at left back. I would say if De Ligt and Maguire are both fit, I would still actually go for I would still put Aiden Heaven or Yoro alongside one of those players, particularly a bit more speed. But you've got too many Mainu and Bruno, Kulusevski and Bremo. I mean, effectively, you're just buying one player there, aren't you? So, in terms of like your next signing, if you're going to get too many, then I think too many improves the team already. The question is going to be maybe like with too many and Mainu, then you're still looking at probably a bit more depth. So maybe you got Baleba there. But I think too many is an exciting option, which I think a lot of people are looking at this. So I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes. Let's have a look at the poll though to see what people are voting for. Because at the moment, yeah, it looks like Belieber at that price, most people were generally keen. So 56% of people have said sign Belieber for 60 million. They voted yes for that. So 78 votes. So a decent snapshot. People are generally in favour of Belieber at that sort of price. I think if you go beyond 70, it's probably going to be the interest is going to drop off. If you could get him 50 to 60, I think it's a probably somewhat of a no-brainer that say 50 million pounds would be definitely a good deal for Man United. But clearly, there's a price where people are considered. To be honest, I don't really care how much the players cost. I think we just need to get players in that work with our team. Say Rafael Leao. I think Rafael Leao is like one season at Manchester United away from thinking that we've made a mistake. I don't know. Like, how do you get a player that's Rafael Leao's age with AC Milan kind of forcing him out? He's playing in one of the weaker leagues in Europe. And if you think how many goals is McTominay scoring in the that league, I don't know. I think there's something up with the Rafael Leao situation. I'm not sure he's injury prone because he's played a decent amount of games. I'm not sure his form is there. I think he might be just pushing to go somewhere else, and then we might have the same issue. So I would be, yeah, I would be not keen on this one. No, he was good a few years ago, wasn't he? He was good, but I just question whether it's going to be the right option. Delit, I've almost stopped considering Delit as going to be like a genuine option. So yeah, I don't know. Um, Chris says Serie A is so weak. Rasmus was bullying centre backs yesterday. I'm trying to. Have we played it? Have we actually played any Italian teams? Like when we were in Europe last, do we actually play any teams in Italy? I can't really remember. I remember we played a few teams in Spain. We played Turkey's team in France. I'm just trying to think if we've actually played any, but I don't know. The Italian league seems to be a bit levels off where elite football is at the moment. It seems to be one of the weaker leagues. Kind of like historically, Serie A used to be really good, and it used to have like top quality teams. I just don't know. It's probably more interesting in terms of like, at least it's not dominated by Juventus, but Juventus dominated that league without ever really doing too much in Europe, apart from that one final. But they were pretty much outplayed. I don't know. Yeah, if I had to like define red flag in footballer form, I think Rafael Leão might be that player. There just seems to be a combination of like incredible transfer fee, price cuts, salary issues. It's basically like Marcus Rashford, isn't it? But he's playing in the Italian league, so he's got worse stats than Marcus Rashford playing in a soft league. It's like basically like it may as well be called Raphael Red Flag, and then like, we could just kind of look at it and go, actually, there's no way we want to sign Raphael Red Flag because it's literally like a combination of like Sancho wrapped in an expensive transfer fee. It's literally like the same deal we've done before. Although I think we scouted him, and luckily, like we did send scouts there last night. Luckily, he played quite crap by all accounts, so that could be a good thing. And I'm hoping that he did. He was playing against Juve, so hopefully, I don't know the result, but according to like someone I know that watched the game, said Rafael Leao wasn't great, so that could be a potentially good thing as well. So hopefully, I mean, we don't need to scout the player to know what he's done over the last few years. I think that's going to be yeah. Apparently, Victor Osman's dropped off quite a lot as well. So potentially, we dodged another one there. So say it's a FIFA colour Osman. I think Osman's dropped off a lot as well. So getting Sesko might have been a better option as well. So we played Atalanta in Europa League. Do we do we beat them? Honestly I can't remember that one. I remember playing like PAOK. We played Bodo Glimt, didn't we? I just couldn't remember. So we played Atalanta. I'm assuming we beat them then because we were unbeaten. But yeah, I must have forgotten that one. Maybe none of the players stood out at the time, so possibly that's the reason. But they won a competition, did they? Not maybe it's a year before that one. So well, I must have blanked out that one, Mike. But we must have beaten them, I'm guessing. So yeah, I don't think Rafael Leone's scouting. He had such a high profile a while ago that you have these situations where Manchester United try and move on Rashford. Okay, everybody knows the situation with Rashford. You have Rafa Leao being moved on by AC Milan, and then you have say Vlahovic being moved on by say Juventus. What does that tell you? That it tells you that these clubs are moving these players on. They're trying to push them out the door. So why are we even considering it? It's crazy, isn't it? Now, welcome Sam to the chat. It says they can keep Baleba. So I think Man United are going to buy Belieber though, or they're going to make an offer. And you're questioning. I think what people are looking at. I think what Manchester United are looking at is they think his stock might go up as well. Yeah, honestly, I must have blanked it out. We must have played. I remember we used to play Real Sociedad as a team we seemed to play way more than we should have done. But I can't remember playing at Atalanta. Maybe we did. We played so many games in the Europa League, I kind of lost track of which teams we did play. But no, any sort of final points before we wrap up? I was going to keep the stream a little bit shorter, but we will wrap it up now. If anyone's got any final points, but it looks like no one's going to agree 100% on Belieber. It does seem that most people feel like I still think he's the most likely signing at the moment. That it's just that United seem to be. It's not that we aren't interested in other players. I think we're looking at this as going to be one that we can probably get over the line as well. If you are new to the channel as well, please subscribe. I think we went past 700 subscribers recently, and we've been reconnecting with a few people as well, which has been great to see. So if you're new to the channel and you just tuned in today, please subscribe. A very big stream planned for tonight as well. 7 p.m. onwards, we're going to do a pre-match, watch long, and post-match in one stream. So that's going to be pretty much most of the evening covered. So I'll have to take a break before then, but something to look forward to. Hopefully, we play Brentford tonight and get some points on the board. Hopefully, we get a win. Brentford are the draw specialists. The only thing I've got about that game is going to be potentially Manchester United are going to move out Cunha, maybe. He had a scan this week. I don't know if he's going to play. It probably depends on the injury. I don't think we're going to see Dorgo back. I think Maguire's back in the team, though. So potentially join us for 7 p.m. tonight for reaction to the lineup. We'll be talking about that on stream. And it's going to be an epic one as well. Helgi will be doing the watch along as well. So hopefully Bruno Fernandes gets a couple more assists to get to the record as well. And then we can beat that against Liverpool. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate all the comments today. And So Belieber 67 million says Lucky Singh. Yeah, maybe Dorgu's in the matchday squad, I think. So you might see Dorgu come off the bench. So potentially we're getting some players back. I think Yoro may be close to the matchday squad as well, but Dorgu could be the one player we see. Maybe it's like 20 minutes just to get him ready for Liverpool. Maybe it's managing Cunha's minutes as well. We want him to be good for Liverpool as well. So I think a lot of this is about getting through Brentford, no more injuries. Make sure you don't bring in players back too soon because Liverpool is going to be a key match for us. We need to make sure we perform well against that team because that could be Liverpool could be the game where we categorically cement Champions League football, and maybe Bruno Fernandes has a crack at beating the all-time Premier League assist record as well in that game. So that could be a really good game to watch on the weekend. I'm looking forward to that a lot. But thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you all getting involved. Big shout out to people that got involved in the calling show yesterday as well. We will be doing that again, but because the match on Sunday, it might be on Monday, so we might shift that to a different day. But everybody's welcome again. We might try and do a little bit quicker in and out type thing in terms of like people that are joining the stream. So it might be like 15 minutes and then we'll get the next person on. But we'll try and do it a bit quicker so we can get more people on. It was a bit long on Sunday, but it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. But we're going to try and be a bit more concise. But thanks, guys. Appreciate this. Thanks for all the comments as well. They always make the streams flow nicely. And welcome to people that found the community recently. And have a great rest of your day. I've been outside this morning, really nice and sunny, really great. I'm kind of half tempted to try and just have a barbecue this afternoon and do that as a food option, but we'll have to see. In the UK, you have to be careful. If it's sunny, you have to get a barbecue done because you never know. We could have like a month of crap weather. But thanks for watching, guys. And we'll be live at 7 p.m. tonight. We'll catch you on that one. Until then, take care and we'll see you soon.